Hello guys, today I'll be ranking the Linkin Park albums. For those who don't know, for those who are maybe new to my channel, Linkin Park was one of the first bands that I ever got into at a young age. I became a fan around 2007, 2008, somewhere in that range, but Chester Bennington was one of my favorite vocalists when I was younger, and he's still one of my favorite vocalists today. He has a strong, powerful voice that's pretty unique, and he has a pretty impressive range too, but yeah, rest in peace to Chester. We miss you. It stinks that I never got the opportunity to sing Linkin Park live with Chester. I would have done anything to get that opportunity, because Linkin Park is just one of those bands for me that just really means a lot to me, along with, of course, some other bands too, like Korn and Deftones and some others. But Linkin Park, definitely an important band for me, and an important band in my music journey, you could say. But anyways, going to get into this ranking. I'll be going from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this ranking. At the bottom, I have One More Light. This album just... When the album came out, I was really disappointed, and my mind hasn't really changed much about it today. But I do like two songs, though. I do like Talking to Myself and the title track, One More Light. I think those two songs are pretty good. Now, Good Goodbye, it has its moments. It's okay. I do like Mike's verse. I do like Pusha T's verse, but Stormzy's verse, absolutely not a fan. But, yeah, the song is okay, but I don't know. Doesn't do all that much for me. But now what I'm about to say, it stinks that I have to say it, but due to what I've seen with some fans of the band, I kind of have no choice. Just because you dislike an album or a song doesn't mean that you're automatically disrespecting the band or Chester's death or anything like that. I want to make that clear. When we say that we're disliking an album like this album, it just means that we just don't like the album. We're not trying to disrespect anybody or anything like that. But yeah, One More Light, again, has to be at the bottom for me. But next, I have... Now, these next two albums honestly go back and forth, but next we have Living Things. The thing with this album... It's just not as memorable as their other albums for me. It doesn't have as many memorable songs, and the replay value also isn't the strongest, at least compared to other albums in their discography. But the thing with this album, I do think that the first half is stronger than the second half, but the second half does have some stuff that I do like Powerless. That's a pretty good song and a pretty good album closer. I also do like Until It Breaks, but songs like Skin to Bone just don't do it for me. I mean, they're not god-awful by any means or anything like that, but not really my thing, again. But with the first half, I really like Lost in the Echo, Burn It Down, and Lies, Greed, Misery. But yeah, Living Things, it's a good album, just not one of my personal favorites. Now, this next one might tick some people off, and that's fine, but next I have 1,000 Suns. Now, I've seen some people put this album at their number one, and I totally get it. I totally understand. I mean, the amount of creativity, the ambition, the concept. It's a unique album in their discography, for sure, but it's just not one of my personal favorites. Now, just because it's not one of my personal favorites doesn't mean that I don't like it. I do like the album. Now, this album did come out when I was still in elementary school, actually, and I remember hearing this album for the first time as an elementary schooler and just absolutely hating it except for two songs, I think. But you gotta remember, at that time I was pretty young, but looking back at it now, I think it's a good album. I do like it more now back than when it came out, for sure. I mean, some of my favorites are When They Come For Me, Waiting For The End. I do like Blackout, Wretches and Kings, and The Catalyst. Wretches and Kings, Waiting For The End, and The Catalyst are probably my top three on the album. Those are really good songs. And I think Wretches and Kings is kind of an underrated song. I really like that song. But although this album isn't one of my favorites, again, I do still like it. Now, next I have The Hunting Party. Absolutely dug this album when it came out. Now, I will admit the replay value isn't as strong now compared to when it came out, but still, I do like the album. It does have some songs I do still enjoy. Some of my favorites on the album are Keys to the Kingdom, All for Nothing, which I think is one of the most underrated songs. Guilty All the Same, I do like Rakim verse. Wastelands, Until It's Gone. Mark the Graves is another song on the album that I find kind of underrated too. Now, we have to talk about the song Drawbar. Honestly, when this album was coming out, that was one of my most anticipated tracks on the album because it had Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine. For those who don't know, I love Rage Against the Machine. If you haven't heard of Rage Against the Machine, please check them out because I know some of my subscribers don't listen to them or they haven't heard them yet. But yeah, definitely check out Rage Against the Machine if you haven't heard them yet. But back to the song Drawbar. I just wish you could hear Tom Morello a little bit more in the song. I wish there was more moments of him taking the spotlight a little bit or shining more on the song because you can't really hear him all that much. Because I felt that Drawbar could have been a bit more interesting. And now it's not god-awful or anything like that, but honestly, I thought it could have been a little bit better. But The Hunting Party, I think it's a pretty good album. But next I have Minutes to Midnight. Now, when I was becoming a fan and getting into Linkin Park and all that, I dug this album when I first heard it, and it still holds up for me today. Some of my favorites are Given Up. I mean, that scream towards the middle part of the song is just so good. I mean, there are plenty of reactions to that song on YouTube for sure, and I've seen some of them, and his scream is just so impressive in that song, and the whole song in general is just really good, and one of my favorite Linkin Park songs. But you have other great songs like Leave Out All the Rest, Bleed It Out, What I've Done, and No More Sorrow. I think No More Sorrow is a song that deserves more attention. Always been one of my personal favorites on the album. Maybe one of my favorite Linkin Park songs. I absolutely dig that song. But yeah, this is a pretty good album for sure. And next, I have Hybrid Theory. Definitely classic in its genre. I mean, honestly, you can't go wrong with any of the songs on the album. There's not a single weak moment on the album, in my opinion. But some of my favorites are, of course, Paper Cut, One Step Closer, Points of Authority. I think Points of Authority is a song that deserves as much attention as songs like In the End, Numb, and One Step Closer, and some others. I absolutely love Points of Authority. And then you have Crawling, that's another favorite of mine, and of course, In the End, and A Place for My Head. Now, that instrumental, Cure for the Itch, I think that instrumental is as good as Session. Now, that might be an unpopular opinion, and that's okay, but I really did Cure for the Itch. But the other songs on the album, like Forgotten and By Myself, are also really good. But yeah, Hybrid Theory, definitely a classic in its genre. Now, we're finally at the top with one of my favorite albums of all time. One of those albums that just really means a lot to me, brings back a lot of memories, and etc. Meteora. Absolutely love this album, not a single weak moment, and there's plenty of diversity on the album too. And you can also hear the growth from Hybrid Theory to this album. You can definitely notice the growth and maturity, or how much they've matured. But some of my favorites are, well, it's hard to narrow down like your top 3 or top 5 favorites on the album, but some of my favorites are Don't Stay, Somewhere I Belong, Lying From You, Breaking the Habit, From the Inside, Nobody's Listening, Numb, Faint. Again, it's really tough to narrow down your favorites to a top 3 or a top 5 because this album is just that good. But yeah, absolutely love this album. Definitely has to be at the top for me. And when it comes to nu metal, it's probably one of my top 5 favorite nu metal albums, and I'm being completely honest. I absolutely love this album, and if you have somehow have not heard this album, definitely, of course, check it out. But yeah, Meteora is my number one. So, anyways, let me know your ranking. Let me know some of your favorite, least favorite albums from this band. What are your thoughts on my ranking overall, and all that good stuff. But, anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.